Thank you. I'm Dave. I'm an AI optimist. If any of you have fatigue around AI, it's 2025. You came to a conference. I don't know what you expected. Last year, I was here, and the theme was the art of the possible. And I spoke about the primordial age of AI UX. Were any of you here? Okay, real quick, if you weren't, here's recap, 90 seconds. For decades, we've lived in this world of building deterministic rules-based software, and that world, all of our roles were very well defined. Designers could design for specific states and flows, and researchers could measure how users went through that. We had a lot of control. Okay? Now, the probabilistic nature of AI means that that runtime experience can differ from what we planned in staging, in production. And so we're going to move from designing for this kind of single golden path where there's a few occasional edge cases where now every experience is going to be an edge case. Things are going to be highly personalized based off of every user, their past behavior, their intention. And so this changes how designers and researchers operate within the organization. It means that we need to really deeply understand the underlying architecture of these new AI systems. We need to connect that UI layer to the underlying system prompts and model routing and inference configuration settings, and these are our new paints and paintbrushes. And so our roles are going to shift to building things where we have to operate these systems where we're adapting in real time, creating experiences that are highly personalized for every individual, and the responsibility to build systems that remain resilient under stress. Okay, I don't know if that was around 90 seconds, but that was roughly it. Okay, everyone's up to speed now. Great. More words were said, opinions were shared, some jokes were made. But if last year was about, whoa, probabilistic systems, where are we going? As I thought about this year, I was reflecting on what's happened over the last 12 months, right? How I've changed my view as a leader, how I think about operating teams differently, maybe more of how these disciplines are merging together, jumping into the pool and building more, right? And so since it's collab, I thought, well, you all know what's coming, right? Julie? That's right, provocations. You got to give the people what they want. Okay? Not one, not two, but 3 provocations coming at you today, one for each of these 3 themes. Okay? So first, designing for AI. This is around how these experiences are changing, how the interactions and the interface layer changes specifically when you have an experience that's driven by inference rather than deterministic logic. So our first provocation, context is king. Design so users naturally provide the right context for AI to succeed. That's our job now. We're designing the communication layer that turns human intention into AI system understanding. There's billions of dollars being spent at the lower levels of this new software stack, at the hardware layer, with GPUs and high bandwidth memory and all these things. And as designers and researchers, our opportunity is to focus on the experience layer, right? There's lots of great ways to innovate, but I think if you can not just tell, but also show your leadership by building and communicating what that end experience is for customers, that's our role. That's our way that we can influence. And so one area that I'm obsessed with is AI design patterns. Any other AI design pattern nerds out there? All right, well, maybe I'll convert a few today. Cool, tough crowd. Keep going. This is a site that's inspired me. It's called AIverse.design. It's about 200 different design patterns, examples of real products in production that have different design patterns. And so I reached out to the founder of this a while ago. We're collaborating. There's a framework that I've created, and we're launching an updated version of this site today or tomorrow. So check back on that, but you're going to get a little sneak peek today. This is a framework real quick, and I'm going to show you some patterns, show you some examples. So there's 5 stages, real quick. Initial AI onboarding, right? This is around the user first lands, they understand what is this AI for, what can I do with it, what are the boundary conditions, what's possible within the system, some type of user input. The user is going to express intent either by typing or clicking or selecting something or manipulating something, right? And this is where you're starting to shape that AI. Then you'll have the AI output. This is how the results are presented and expressed back to you at the user level, right? This is where things like output clarity and transparency and interpretability, confidence metrics come in. Often that single shot is not going to be successful, and so there's a whole set of patterns and ways that you can start to refine and add more context. And like any conversation, it doesn't go through a single linear path. You're going to go down these little cul-de-sacs in different ways through your conversation. And there's loops, there's inner loops, right, as you move through this and you navigate it. And then there's this other final phase around broader system learning, around how you as the user are building knowledge into that AI system, not just through a single session, but over multiple days, weeks, both through your explicit and implicit actions and behaviors, right? And again, a broader feedback loop. So I'm going to show you a couple patterns. We don't have time for a lot, but these are all examples of expressive input. Visually rich, lightweight ways to shape that AI behavior, to provide more intent, more clarity to that AI system. And so let me show you a couple. This is from Luma AI. So yeah, kind of a Mad Lib style, right? Recognition's easier than recall, right? Real expressive way for a user to select the right intent into that AI system. Here's another one. This is from Adobe. So create 2 images, overlap them, right? A much richer way to express input. Imagine trying to do this through natural language, right? You're not going to get that. Here's another one from Visual Electric. Anyone played with Visual Electric? Image generation tool, a monk in a blossoming cherry orchard. But look at that. You can express specific colors that you want or reference a specific style. Okay? And then you're going to get not just one, not the slot machine single response, but 4 iterations. And then from there, you can iterate on it. You can retouch. You can make variations, right? So a much more expressive way to put input. Expanding context. Once users, let's see here. Expanding context is around not just so the first pattern was talking about the user manipulating something. This is around the user connecting to the underlying architecture of that AI system. So often a user may not know what that IT admin inside that organization, what data sources, what connectors, what RAG system is actually populated. And so this is an example where writer.com, you create, as the end user, you create a graph. And a graph, you can add manual files, you can add your data connectors, maybe connect to specific APIs. And what I love about this is now the end user, because they set it up, they know that their chat assistant is connected with Salesforce and ServiceNow and some other ERP system, right? So too often, the end user doesn't know that, right? It's done at this admin layer. And so, of course, you're not going to get a very good output because the end user doesn't know what was set up, right? So good example here. Another pattern around explainability. This is around how do we provide transparency into the reasoning of why the system responded in the way that it did. Okay? This is Orbital Witness. This is a startup focused on real estate law. Wild group. The users of this tool are lawyers and legal practitioners. And so they do what's kind of table stakes right now. You put it in a chat, you'll get a response, and it has sources and citations. Absolutely table stakes. Like, do you notice when you click in the citation, it'll actually pull up on the PDF viewer what that source is, and then it highlights in yellow that exact snippet, right? Much richer way of explainability. In our field, we talk about, like, we need to provide trust to the user and all these things. I'm trying to give you an example of like what that would actually look like for the end user. Okay, a lot more design patterns I could show you. Catch me anytime in the hallway. I'd love to show. I've got tons and tons of examples. Next part is around designing with AI. This is around the new tools and the new methods that expand how designers and researchers can contribute within that traditional product development lifecycle. Okay, jumping into the pool. So, provocation number 2. You all now have infinite skills and can build anything. Pretty cool, right? The magic genie came out and he said 3 wishes, and I said, I want infinite skills so I can build anything. You have that now. But Dave, there's so many tools. Where do I get started? Well, there's different tools for different jobs, of course. Many of you have seen this before. This is an oldie but a goodie. Yeah? Okay, cool. The process of design squiggle, the messy, meandering start to any project, right? We're going to go super deep in research and synthesis because the cost of doing that is really cheap, and if we move farther along in the development process, it's really expensive to build something. And so let's spend more energy up front, and then we'll know what we're going to build, and then we're going to build it. This never really landed with me, actually, because I don't feel like this is my process. My process is more like this, right? Much more my lived experience. But with these tools, you can move through this cycle much more rapidly. Rather than weeks or months, you can do it in minutes or days. So you can move from exploration to something that's shipped. You can move from low fidelity to something that's real. You can move from vectors to code. And so one mental model that I have is within this landscape of all these different tools, just kind of everything on the left is, we'll call it prototyping, right? And everything on the right sort of moves you closer to real code. And in the spirit of, hey, I want to jump into the pool, how might I get started? Let me show you this. So my process that and this would actually be a great conversation with all of us over break, like, what are you building? How are you building it? Like we were just having this conversation. So here's a little bit of how I do it. I love to go for a walk or a run, and I am the weirdo with AirPods, like running, talking to ChatGPT, like brainstorming out loud. That's my first process. And then when I get back to my house, it's like, hey, convert that into a Canvas doc. Give me an outline of what we just talked about. And that's how I like to kind of brainstorm, whether it's a new feature or a new idea. Then you might want to go into Lovable or Figma Make and start to prototype something or play with something. I love this tool, Subframe. Has anyone tried Subframe? Really, really fun tool. What I love about Subframe is you still design visually like a GUI, like with Figma, where you have layers and you connect all your, you have that level of control. But everything, you're not manipulating vectors. Everything is code. And so what that means is, as you're designing, you've now got React code that you can hand over to an engineer, hand over to, actually you yourself can take it into Cursor or Windsurf, right, and start to build. And there's some things I've built, and there's like a whole bunch of little tips and tricks around how you can do this, and we can talk about it over lunch and dinner and all that. But that's a little bit of my process. And so you've now got infinite skills. You can build anything, but I think this is the key part. And Michael kind of stole my thunder with the pool analogy. It's much better. But I would just say, learn by building. You're not going to learn by doom scrolling LinkedIn, okay? Reading an article, going to a conference. Those are all great, that's fine, but that's not how you're going to develop those skills. That's not how you're going to enter this age, okay? So if there's anything, because again, I'm an AI optimist, but it's only as good as the tools and you know how to use them, and so you've got to jump in there and start building. Third and final part is leadership in an AI era, right? So all these things are changing. How is the org design and our team culture evolving if every project is including AI, right? So I used to be at AWS. We talked about providing the undifferentiated heavy lifting of of these low-level, things like compute and storage and databases, and like every application and website in the world is always going to need those things. We have entered that age now where every feature, every product is going to be powered by inference, right? And so how do we change as leaders? So provocation number 3, AI makes abundance cheap, transparency essential, and context priceless. What do I mean by that? For decades, design and researchers managed around constraints, right? The or that Michael was talking about, not enough time or budget or people, and every decision was about these trade-offs. But now, if the cost of building is so much cheaper, then as leaders, we're going to have a lot more of everything. We're going to have every feature can have multiple prototypes. Every feature can have multiple user studies, right? So this is a lot of complexity. How's you as a leader going to manage that? One of the problems with this abundance is the cost of the coordination, right? Because you've got so much going on. There's overlap between various functions and people. And so I think the solution is you have to have transparency inside your organization. Employees need even more visibility into what's going on across their teams. And culturally, transparency becomes this center stone, this cornerstone that you really have to have. It's not a nice to have. It's not a reason that someone might enjoy one company over another. It really needs to become integrated into the fabric of the way that we work, not just at the people layer, but it's also important because the context of your organization is your special sauce. It's how you're going to build a product that differentiates from what a frontier model can do on its own, right? And so if you're building an enterprise software product and you have some unique information, some unique data, culturally, the principle of how do we provide the transparency from leadership down to everyone who's fingers on keyboard building it, into applying that learning and that knowledge. Okay? So those are just 3. I'm sure there's many, many more. I am thrilled to deliver this talk at the very beginning of the conference because we get to talk about all these things. So over meals, over breaks, would love to engage with all of you. For this first provocation, if context is king, how is your research fed into the organization? Right? How is your design, best practices and patterns fed into the organization, and so others can take that context and build with it? If you're designing with AI, what do you want to build now? Now that you have infinite skills, what do you want to build? And then third, leadership in this AI era. How are you changing as a leader? How have you changed over the last year? What are the trends? How are you going to bring transparency and context and manage for this world of abundance? Thank you.